An interesting idea if I do say so myself. This video was requested by a user who wished to remain anonymous, and a dang good idea it is. What if Obito trained Naruto? We often see the birth of Naruto play out in many different ways in the videos we make here at the Amagi, but we, for some reason, haven't really done anything like this idea. So I say we change that. Let's make the mystery of this video into a reality. So if you would, please turn your gaze up towards the moon as we cast you under the Infinite Tsukuyomi. Let us show you a world where anything is possible. A world where Obito took pity upon Naruto and decided to train him. Welcome to the Amagi. Before we begin, only 25% of our viewers are subscribed, so if you're a fan of the video, please like and double check if you are subscribed. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video. The masked individual stood outside the cave system that led underground. The area was well guarded. After all, the strongest shinobi in the world, and arguably the most important shinobi, was in there. And despite his massive strength, they still felt they needed to guard him.
Asinine,
the masked individual stated. If there was a shinobi who could truly be deterred by this entourage of fools, then they were never a true threat to the Hokage anyway. There just came a point of where having a trained guard on you at all times became a hindrance. They could and would do nothing this night, and he would teach them so. The power of the Sharingan was absolute in the world of shinobi, and Obito was about to prove as much. In that moment, he disappeared from view, nothing but a slightly rusted old katana in his hand. 1 shinobi, 2 shinobi, 3 shinobi, 4. 5 shinobi, 6 shinobi, 7 shinobi, more! Bit by bit, every shinobi fell as if they were the 185,000 warriors facing the Angel of the Lord. It was quick, merciless, and done in such confusion that half the group was killed before they even discovered that they were under attack. And even once they had discovered it, it was too late to do anything about it. Should one attempt to open their mouth and call for help, that tongue was cut out, letting the shinobi choke on their own blood. Mute. As he appeared and disappeared in a flash, Obito mused to himself that his Sharingan had once again proved why it was the absolute. With nothing but the Kekkei Genkai of the most powerful clan in the world, Obito had matched the legendary Yellow Flash, perhaps even surpassed him, as his own teleportation was not limited to where he had placed his mark. All he had to do was think about where he wanted to be, and his body was transported there with the power of Kamui. To be honest, Obito could have teleported right in and taken Kushina already if he wanted, but even if he could possibly do it, the shinobi would cause him no end of trouble. While the shinobi here could not truly protect their master, they could help him overwhelm any enemies, which was probably a far better strategy than standing outside facing the wind. Obito would eventually finish off his enemies, and as he did, he mused about how his own Sharingan in particular was above all others, invincible. It had been said that a Mangekyo Sharingan's power was so great that the eye would seal itself away from usage. This was a poetic way of saying that the eye strain would make one go blind from use. Obito, however, was not going blind, and he wasn't going to start anytime soon. While most couldn't explain this phenomenon, Obito easily could. The power of Hashirama Senju's cells introduced to his body and flowing through it had preserved the Sharingan's health with their overwhelmingly powerful regenerative ideas. They could be used to replace an arm or a leg, or in Obito's case, an entire freaking body. It didn't seem like too much of a stretch to believe that it could fix a small astigmatism caused by strain. It was in moments like this, where the blood of Konoha's most elite stained his hands, that Obito felt invincible. It was a rush of not only adrenaline, but also pride that he felt as he did this. He was growing drunk on himself, which he had in times past perceived as a weakness he needed to overcome, as his own self-assuredness caused him to both underestimate his enemies and leave him open to even simple attacks due to his defenses no longer perceiving it as a threat. Shaking himself free of his own feelings of immortality, he began to move into the caves, his rusty sword now drenched in blood from the Kiseki to the Hapaki. The last person he could underestimate right now was his former master. Having seen him in person, Obito knew what he was capable of. For most, being able to know what to expect from your adversary was comfort, assurance that they could not surprise you, but in truth, it was the fact that he knew what Minato could do that scared him the most. Obito knew that the man lived up to the legend. No, he went well beyond the legend. His greatest feats were the ones left unrecorded, because as a shinobi, people knowing everything you could do was a fatal mistake that only the foolish partook in. As Obito went deeper, he found the few other shinobi guarding the area and began systematically killing them. But as he did so, his katana finally gave up the ghost. He looked down at the snapped blade. It seemed that the rust had been worse than he originally anticipated. Perhaps this was a foolish mistake, relying upon something that had no assurance that could keep up. Not that Obito was by any means no longer a danger, but this did lower his chances of being a true threat to the Yellow Flash. Looking around, he realized the truth. Oh, how ironic it was. This place that would serve as the hospital for the birthing mother had been previously a prison for Konoha's most dangerous criminals. It only made sense, given how she was a Jinchuriki and the fact that labor weakened the seal on the Ninetales. They needed a place that was certain to not be a danger to them. And what better facility than this underground prison? If the Ninetales escaped, it would be caught in the catacombs and tunnels, buried up to its neck in hard stone and bedrock. This was a great strategy for Konoha. It could contain the Ninetales in a distant location to protect the leaf, but it was also good for Obito, as it meant that there was probably something around here he could use as a better weapon. Looking into one of the old dungeons that had been carved out of stone, he spotted a set of shackles chained to the wall. Strong shackles, slightly bloody with a bit of tarnish. They had been formed from a metal strong enough to hold elite shinobi.
Ah, these shall do nicely,
he said to himself. Utilizing his kamui, he pulled the chains from the wall and pocketed them. He would then confiscate the kunai pouch of the Anbu agent he had just killed. Now, with proper weaponry, he could approach the area where the Hokage's wife was giving birth with confidence. As he entered the room stealthily, it seemed she had already given birth, but the seal was about to be replaced. He needed to move quickly to stop this. He rushed forward with his kunai and put his blade between the ribs of the wife of the third Hokage, currently acting as the midwife. Taking the babe from her hands, he finished the others off, drawing Minato's attention. There he attempted to negotiate with Minato. After all, as Obito stood there, he was trying to be strategic. While he felt he had a good shot to beat his mentor with the power of the Sharingan, why risk it at all? There were alternatives to fighting, and one of them was utilizing a hostage. The third Hokage's first child for the Ninetales. He thought that with this child present, it could deter the Hokage from facing him at all. And so, when he could not get Minato to agree, he decided to use against him the one thing he knew the Hokage could not resist. The Hokage moved by muscle memory. It was as if his limbs had a mind of their own. His speed was based on his reaction time, and his reaction time surpassed the speed of his own rational thought. By triggering a reaction time event, he could force the Hokage's own strengths against him, and so he threw the child into the air with the intent to kill. As soon as he did, he saw Minato's pupils dilate. He knew that the action to be taken was a foregone conclusion. Obito didn't even wait for Minato to move before rushing toward Kushina. In this one moment, nobody existed to Minato, only Naruto, the goal, the reason for an automatic use of his incredible speed. It was this reaction that Obito knew granted him a head start. While his Sharingan indeed allowed for him to teleport around like Minato did, his base speed still wasn't as great as Minato's, and for that purpose, Obito knew he needed a head start. As soon as Minato started moving, Naruto was already in his arms. He had moved so fast that he hadn't even left a sonic boom. He was a silent flash, like light itself passing through the atmosphere. It was a terrifying concept that Obito could only barely see with his Sharingan, but all the same he was fast enough to reach Kushina before Minato's rational mind took over again. Utilizing Kamui, he teleported her out to a rocky area. There, he used sealing jutsu to hold her up like a chain. Oh, how he had longed for this day. The strongest of all tailed beasts would soon be under his control, and that meant that soon all other beasts would be as well. With 9 tails in hand, he was one step closer to his ultimate goal of seeing Rin again.
Come out, 9 tails,
he shouted, as of yet still disguising his voice to be unrecognizable to Kushina, who at one time had known him well. The beast was pulled out of her. It was a terrible fate indeed, and the last remnants of the flame that once called itself a proud shinobi of the leaf lamented for her. But in the end, he was yet still comforted by the fact that what he was doing would ultimately lead to a perfect world where everyone was alive and well. Despite the qualms he would normally feel about killing, even the eradication of those he loved most felt insignificant. As soon as they were in the world of Tsukuyomi, there he would be able to resurrect them. All would be forgiven, and the world would graciously live in a world of bliss that would never end. The Tsukuyomi had the ability to bend one's perception of time by dividing shorter spans of time to fit larger dreams, and Obito knew that the point between one moment and another crossed an infinite sea of divisions. A world that would never end, a dream that existed forever as the world beyond crawled to a stop. Comforted by his own goals, he found it easy to turn his back on her, leaving her to die as he walked away with the 9 tails.
Wait,
she called out to him.
You can't do this.
Oh, you're still alive,
he asked, his eye peering back at her.
My, you Uzumaki are a strong bunch, able to resist a while, even after the removal of your tailed beast. Most others die before they hit the ground.
It was then that Minato appeared. At first, Obito was surprised, but then it made sense.
You marked your wife.
He thought secretly within himself.
Minato, you sly dog.
This brought a smile to his face. Even after so many years, his master still surprised him.
I guess the old adage is wrong. You can teach an old dog new tricks.
As he took her away, Obito felt a hint of relief in knowing that Minato was emotionally spiraling. He was abandoning his duty for love and giving Obito exactly what he wanted, being too desperate to save Kushina to really do anything to stop him, or so he thought. The moment he saw his mentor's cold stare through darkened eyes, Obito felt the urge to have a panic attack. He stabilized. He smiled for himself under his mask to help remind him that he was still in control. He was only startled by it. The reasoning, though, was he knew what his kind-hearted master was capable of as a loving man. But what Minato was capable of when he threw his humanity away, he tossed the thought aside. Minato was leaving, and so should they. But not before he crushed all these so-called real shinobi. Together with the beast that had caused, fought, and ended many wars, Obito departed to begin the cycle anew. He departed for the Hidden Leaf. Keeping well out of sight, Obito watched as the chaos unfolded. The leaf was caught off guard. They were in a panic. They couldn't deal with the beast now. In times past, the beast had been their weapon, their tool, their pet that waited on their every beck and call. And now it was tearing them apart. Obito couldn't help but let the beast have its time. He couldn't help but let its overwhelming pain and anger out. In truth, he wasn't sure his genjutsu could even hold back this beast. It was only passive to his control because his control offered a century-old itch to scratch that had boiled beneath the surface since the moment of its original sealing. Comeuppance in 4K. The leaf's own mistakes would drive the village to destruction, its own overconfidence to extinction, its own cruelty to annihilation. This was divine justice on behalf of the only physical creature here that could call itself a god. The Nine-Tails was going to be the judge, jury, and executioner of this village that had gone on for too long, forgetting what it meant to be a shinobi in exchange for useless rules, that pushed its selfishness onto the individual, robbing them of self-worth and any moral code beside the leafs. He sat and watched as the old era would burn away, and none could stop it. No, that wasn't true. Minato could stop it, and already his powerful presence could be felt. The Nine-Tails sensed it, as did Obito. He stood and looked out, the Hokage having stepped out on the carving of his own head. As the Nine-Tails launched a tailed beast ball at the man, a teleportation barrier went up, transporting the attack to a safe location miles away. This was an issue, one Obito had to deal with personally. The Nine-Tails was being distracted by Minato, and his presence was going to lead to the possible defeat of the Nine-Tails and the ruin of the plans Obito had been forging for the past few years. Obito knew that if there was one person in the village who could stop the Nine-Tails, that person was Minato. So Obito leapt into battle against him. Teleporting behind him, he went to grab his old mentor. Obito's presence caused Minato to turn around and swing his kunai, one that passed clean through Obito as expected. He grabbed the Hokage's wrist and with his kamui teleported the two of them away to another location. There, Obito attached the chains he had procured earlier to his wrists. Minato was quick. He knew that he would likely utilize that transportation jutsu again. He noticed how Minato's kunai were strewn about, each one bearing a jutsu formula on them. Minato began to slowly wave his hands around in a taunting and threatening way, as if he were some elderly wizard preparing to cast a curse upon him. And perhaps he was. The hand was quicker than the eye was the saying of most magicians. It depended on which eye and which hand. So now it was time to test if the Sharingan was truly quicker than the yellow flash of the leaf. Obito had the ability to turn intangible at will, and knew that he could use this to his advantage. But he further knew that he had already displayed this ability many times, so Minato was sure to counter. Minato's main ability currently seemed to be his flying Raijin Jutsu, so he needed to be careful about that. As Obito and Minato engaged in battle, it became apparent to Obito that with his Sharingan and the years of training he had painstakingly inflicted upon himself, that his potential was only ever stifled by his emotions. It was true. Nice guys really did finish last, because it was only the nice guys who limited themselves for the sake of others. And now that Obito had cast that away to become the scum he truly was, he could fight in the scummiest way possible. And that way was perfection. He attempted to pass through Minato, and upon doing so, he would wrap him in his chains and attempt to rip him to pieces with a flick of his wrist. The veins in his arm bulged as he applied enough force to tear a human torso in half, but just as he did so, Minato teleported away. Obito smiled. His reaction was the same as he expected. Minato's answer for everything was going to be this ninjutsu, but that was okay. This would become a weakness for Minato, and he would do so by manipulating his own weaknesses in such a way that he turned it into power. After all, there was nothing that could flip the stats of a shinobi like a little deception. As the battle continued, Minato and Obito charged at each other. Minato readied a Rasengan and then threw a kunai at Obito. The blade passed through Obito's head and went to the other side. They came close enough to touch. This was Minato's chance. If he could take advantage of the single moment that the masked man could become tangible again to strike him, he could hurt him. But the bad thing about this plan was that Obito had already expected it. He never planned to attack or turn tangible. His body language only signaled a false tell to force Minato into taking a chance. And just as predicted, Minato teleported and smashed the ground with his Rasengan, causing a crater, missing Obito entirely. While Minato was still shocked, Obito would turn tangible and wrap his chains around his mentor's neck. Minato was unable to teleport again so quickly, and with a pull of his arms, Obito jerked the chain. A bone-chilling crunch could be heard as Minato's head dangled grotesquely to the side. He fell forward. Obito freed himself from his mentor. Looking back, he began to wonder, was it possible? Had he truly killed his master? No, such a thing was impossible. That had to have been a shadow clone. But then again, shadow clones disappeared when struck with enough force to cause a broken bone, and he had just snapped this one's neck. Not a shadow clone. Then, was it truly the real thing? Obito wanted to jump for joy. He wanted to dance. He had done it. He had proven just how invincible the Sharingan was to the world. As he turned around, he noticed how close they were to the old shack that Minato had prepared for Kushina. There was the sound of crying coming from within, the wailing of a child. Obito drew closer to the old shack and opened the door. It creaked. No light existed within. The candles keeping the area lit had all but blown out as Kushina's soul left the residence. Obito stepped through, careful to inspect everything in the room to ensure that he wasn't somehow about to step into a trap. Certain that everything was safe, he stepped deeper. There was a large bed here from which the child lay wailing. By its side, the mother lay dead. Obito scoffed. Strong enough to survive the initial moments, but not strong enough to survive life without the tailed beast. He was about to leave when he stopped. Hearing the child crying behind him, something dawned on him, something awakening from the past. His light and darkness were at war within him at this very moment. Perhaps this all had more of an emotional impact on him than he previously believed. But as he stood there, the angel on his shoulder begged him to save the child, while the devil on the other side demanded that he killed it. As he took the time to debate within himself, he grew weary, knowing he didn't have much time to make a decision. In the end, his light half and dark half finally agreed on something. Take the child with you, his light half asking him to do it for selfless altruism, while his dark half told him to do it for selfishness. It could be a tool later on. He looked back at the babe. Picking it up, he looked the child over. He would need a proper vessel with which to store the Ninetales for a time. They couldn't just put the Ninetales into the ghetto statue and be done with it. No, there was an order to things, and rushing that order or doing it backwards would not only cause a power surge, but could destroy the statue entirely. He had originally considered keeping it in his Kamui dimension, but upon realizing that doing so would possibly make it impossible for him to safely spam Kamui as he had done before, he thought that a child like this would be perfect. He would raise the infant to believe him to be his kind and loving uncle. Love, after all, was a powerful tool. Not only would it make the child obedient to him, but it would also make a proper foundation to plant the curse of hatred into him should he desire to do so. And with this, he lifted the child up into his arms. As it sniffled and hiccuped, he attempted to soothe the child with a finger. Oh, you shall be a happy little ninja, my unwitting slave. A powerful servant, one who, through hard work, might attain the nirvana I have planned for the world. And with that, the two teleported away. That night was a night of pure tragedy for Konoha, and was the last night Konoha ever truly existed. The fourth Hokage had been killed by Obito, and the third stomped into bloody oblivion by the Ninetales. The village infrastructure had been laid to waste, and the mighty clans that had been the pillars of their society had been mostly decimated. Without true protection or resources, nothing would be able to stop the expansion of other villages into the land of fire. The only thing really standing in the way was the Fire Daimyo. Obito would not let that stand for long. He knew that if he neutralized the Fire Daimyo, he could completely destabilize the Land of Fire, which would cause the opportunistic lands of Wind, Stone, and Lightning to move in on them. Heck, even the Land of Water might take a stake in the land. And through that constant expansion, each nation and village would wear itself thin, allowing for Obito to more easily procure the beasts he desired. Taking the child with him, he then leads the beast out of the remains of the village, where the remainder of the shinobi aimlessly tread about like bees returning to a fractured hive. Taking this moment of respite, Obito would utilize sealing jutsu on the young boy to put the beast into him. As he does so, however, it becomes obvious that the child can't bear the power of the beast alone, so Obito would cast it under genjutsu. He would begin to wonder how he could possibly have this child utilize or even contain the beast. But this was when he had an idea. Returning to the village, but for a moment he would seek out the Uchiha. He needed one with a Sharingan, no, one with a Mangekyo. That Mangekyo was what would be capable of keeping the beast at bay, and he knew of only one he knew for sure would have the Mangekyo. None other than the very leader of the Uchiha himself, Fugaku. Fugaku was already mostly isolated. The shinobi were in disarray, searching for survivors, scrounging for hope in a decimated village. It was miraculous that anyone survived that attack. The village was going through the single greatest tragedy they'd ever faced, and during this time, what free remained were spread thin. Due to this, Obito managed to take Fugaku by surprise and teleport him out of the village toward where the 4th Hokage had been fought. Fugaku would look back and see Minato and would snarl before looking forward.
So you're the culprit. I find it unbelievable that an Uchiha would do something like this. Tell me, who did you steal that Sharingan from?
Obito smiled and held out his arms as if presenting himself.
Believe it or not, Fugaku, I am an Uchiha, the founding clan head in Konoha, your predecessor and your last living blood relative.
Fugaku seemed strained from hearing that. Madara. He knew he was outclassed, but with the power of his Mangekyo Sharingan, he knew that there was a possibility that he could take Madara by surprise. And that surprise might have been enough to defeat Madara, or so he thought. He himself was taken by surprise as Obito deployed his Kamui. There was no way for him to fight back against that. In but a moment, Fugaku was also cut down, his body laid to waste beside that of Minato Namikaze. Kneeling over the body, he opened the lid to spy that precious Mangekyo Sharingan.
You won't be needing this anymore, I don't suppose. I'll be taking them.
Having procured the Mangekyo Sharingan, Obito would return to the babe. He would head for his secret base at the mountain's graveyard. Zetsu would appear behind him.
Did everything go well?
Obito looked back.
Everything is moving according to plan. Go to Konoha. Many Uchiha perished in the Nine-Tails attack. I want you to procure as many of their Sharingan as possible. We'll need them.
Zetsu would then disappear into the ground. Obito would move towards the operating room with the child. Sedating it, he would proceed to do the same thing Madara had done with Nagato all those years ago and would transplant the Mangekyo. Though Naruto would never be able to shut them off, he assumed that this would not be an issue. After all, if an Uzumaki was capable of surviving with Rinnegan that could never be turned off, then an Uzumaki should be able to survive with a set of Sharingan that couldn't be shut off. But to make sure of this, Obito also transplanted a fair culture of Hashirama cells into the infant that would help fight any possible rejection, as well as aid in quick healing. Once this was done, Obito implanted within the child's new Sharingan a particular genjutsu, one that would be capable of quieting even the Nine-Tails and bringing it subservient under its user. The genjutsu banked on the usage of a similar technique as that of the Hokage-style 60-year-old technique, Kakuan entering society with bliss-bringing hands. Considering that the boy now had Hashirama cells within him, the subconscious cage that the boy possessed would also be built with a similar technique. Even though the Nine-Tails was far stronger than the child, it should easily be constrained within the child at this point, stopping it from escaping and rampaging. With the procedure done, Obito would hold up the child.
Naruto, you will make a powerful servant to the Akatsuki.
Back in the village, Itachi Uchiha wandered around the carnage holding his baby brother in his arms. As his feet strode across the ground, he kept looking for survivors. He was planning to go to the shelter as Izumi had done prior, but for some reason he had the desire not to do so. And it was a good thing he did, as the shelter had been struck so hard that not a single person there survived. Having seen the smoldering wreckage, Itachi knew that he and his brother were a hair's breadth away from being killed. As he walked through what was left of the village, his mind couldn't comprehend the sight. The buildings that had once lined the streets were all nothing but smoldering wrecks now. They had been flattened, leaving nothing but a small, ashen pile of steaming bricks. The ground itself was steaming. Itachi's bare feet were already bleeding, having tread over not only burning ground, but broken glass and shards of pointed material. He was, as he spoke, leaving a trail of bloody footprints. A bit of blood dripped from his brow as his face was covered in dust and dirt. All the same, he remained expressionless. This was just like the scene his father had showed him all those years ago. This was just like the Third Shinobi World War. He walked to a pile of dead bodies. Gazing into it, listed among the bodies of the unknown was a charred skeleton that could not be known. Not to anyone but Itachi. Kneeling down, he found a ring around the finger of the blackened bones that were the skeleton. Mom. As he said the words, for the first time his expressionless face twisted and stretched in sorrow. Attempting to stay strong, his face stiffened, but even his iron will could not stop him from crying. Tears ran down his cheeks, leaving a streak of skin color behind as the tears pulled with it the ashes that had lightly caked on. It was not long until a shinobi found the two of them and rushed over.
What are you doing out here? You could get hurt.
The shinobi said as it came down to his level. He noticed the bloody footprints behind.
Kid, your feet. You need to...
He then noticed the ring in the child's hand. Seeing it and the face of the child, the shinobi could only then come to the understanding of what this child was facing.
This was your mother, wasn't it?
Without even receiving an answer, the shinobi pulled them into a hug. As he did, he wondered what could possibly be the future for these children, for any of the shinobi here. There was no longer a Hidden Leaf village to be a part of. The future was uncertain. As Itachi kept Sasuke close, now his only living relative, he promised Sasuke that he would protect him, and he further promised to find the person who had done this and bring them to justice. For the sake of not only his mother, not only his clan, not only his village, but for the sake of the whole world. Obito stood on the pathway. He looked up at the offensively blue sky. He mused to himself that the world cared not about the lives of the people who lived upon its surface. Whether it be during war times or after a massacre, the skies tended not to give a damn. They didn't darken in response to people's emotions. They remained perpetually happy, regardless of those living below. And when they clouded up and rained, it could be on a day of extreme joy. Yes, indeed, rain could come on a sad day, but make no mistake, if the weather was sad, it had nothing to do with you. Whether you were happy or sad, it cared not, and it currently was displaying such. Obito's chakra moved darkly through his body, a symptom that foreshadowed his commitment to performing the vile action of murder. Looking down, he saw a brand new katana sitting in a brand new saya. It wasn't super flashy. Indeed, he had seen a flashier sword, one with a dragon motif, the manuki being the dragon's head, the grip being gold-colored cloth, and the blade itself steel overlaid with gold in a dragon scale pattern. A beautiful work of art, but the issue was just that. It was flashy. It drew attention to itself. It could easily become something identifiable, and considering that it cost 3 times the amount he was willing to spend, it was quickly passed over for something more practical. Something, albeit so humble, was sharp enough and strong enough to get the job done. And the best part? It was galvanized. That made it not only more durable, and also made it less likely to rust. After the last katana, he would never take another rusted blade into battle with him again. Not if he could help it. And though it worked out well that time, and Obito discovered a new affinity for a new weapon he had never thought about before, it was still not something he wished to repeat. It was by good fortune that he did not fail that mission. One might say, however, that the mark of a good shinobi had nothing to do with their tools, but what they could do with what they had, if they had anything at all. Whatever the case, Obito liked to increase his chances of success with better equipment. In the distance, he heard the sound of a palanquin being carried. This was the target, the fire daimyo. Currently, the old Kager was on his way to the remnants of Konoha to offer aid in the form of extra funds and a guard detail. Obito was not going to be having that. As the daimyo rounded the corner, he was flanked by samurai and the disheveled shinobi of the crater formerly known as Konoha. Such desperate beings hidden behind faces of confidence and hope. This was an ember of hope for a return to normalcy, but normalcy was not the kind of thing that Obito needed right now. He needed distrust. He needed ill will, conquest. He needed another world war. And so he would quash their hopes now. He didn't even bother hiding. The shinobi and samurai alike made eye contact with him and began to slow the procession to a halt. The head of the security detail, a samurai with salt and pepper hair, young enough to move efficiently with strength but old enough to display wisdom, like someone who would identically fit this position, pulled his katana from his saya. "Identify yourself, stranger. You're in the path of the fire daimyo. Move from the path." Obito, under his mask, smiled. It was almost cute. Such a little samurai thought he was something special. The best he could do was channel chakra into his weapon, unlike Obito, who could do that and perform various types of ninjutsu. The shinobi surrounding the little box, unofficial members of the security detail, were more of a threat to him than any single samurai could be. Obito walked a little closer. The samurai raised a hand. "Stop!" "Stay there, we're sending someone over." One of the samurai began to run over in Obito's direction with the intent of inspecting him to see if he were any danger at all. Obito was indeed a danger. As soon as the samurai got within his range, Obito pulled the blade from his robe and carved into the man with a single stroke, slicing him in two. The palanquin's crew suddenly began to back up and head in the other direction as the guards stepped in the way, ready to defend against Obito. Obito would come at them with incredible speed. He didn't even attempt to use his blade to defend. He utilized instead kamui to ensure that the blades passed clean through as he carved them all up something fierce. Samurai and shinobi alike fell to his blade, unable to identify or counter kamui. He then ran up to see the palanquin and those that carried it. The box was so heavy that they had already expended their energy. They were still trying to run, but the rate at which they moved was slow. Obito caught up with them simply by walking. The bearer that was closest to Obito looked over at him and seemed like he might panic, but escaping him was a moot point. He carved down the man, causing the palanquin to stop and fall on the corner, no longer being carried. Obito systematically made his way around the box, killing the other bearers. As they all fell to the ground in a bloody mess, Obito walked to the palanquin's only door and opened it up to show the elegantly dressed daimyo sitting there, clutching a paper fan in a death grip. Obito stared at him through the mask. "Ah, the leader of the Land of Fire. It's a pleasure to meet you, Your Honor, though I wish it had been under different circumstances." "What do you want? Money? I have plenty. I'll give you as much as you want, just leave me alone." Obito let out a small sigh. "Sadly, I'm on a mission for the good of the world, and I have decided that the world would be better off without you." The man let out a panicked yelp, but was quickly silenced when Obito's katana rent him apart. Obito stepped back and flicked the blood from his blade, cleaning it off with a towel before replacing it into the saya. "Indeed, this is what will be good for the world." "War," a voice spoke. He turned to see a shinobi he thought was already dead, laying there, gurgling on his own blood. Obito stepped closer. You're not doing what's best for us. You're causing a war." Obito sighed. Consider it a growing pain. He then dipped the tip of his blade into the back of the man's skull. He turned and proceeded to teleport himself out via kamui. And what was predicted came to pass. With Konoha's destruction and the assassination of the daimyo, the entirety of the Land of Fire was in disarray. Without proper defenses and those who could command them, the Land of Fire was quickly encroached upon. The last 4 great shinobi villages and the nations tied to them set about spoiling the Land of Fire, with their greed causing each nation to fight one another, forge alliances, and break them in order to take it all for themselves. The 4th Shinobi World War was a go, and the superpowers of the world were vying for a claim of the land, hoping to use its resources and might to increase their power. Of course, Obito saw an easier way. Simply divide the Land of Fire up evenly between the 4 warring states. But no. Greed had stepped in, and the hatred and killing had taken on a metaphysical form, and had become a living being all in its own, intent to bring ruin to the world, bloodshed and death for no reason other than greed. But it wasn't like this surprised Obito. This is what he had expected to happen after all. If it hadn't been, he wouldn't have bothered killing the daimyo. He understood this flawed world system, and he was manipulating it, and the events of the world's history from behind the scenes. All in all, Obito was a magician, and this plan was nothing more than a sleight of hand trick that would force the world to look away and value something else, while Obito took the true prize for himself. Or should we say, ourselves now. It wasn't like Obito could have done this alone. He needed to acquire aid. That was when he met with Pain again. Having been the one all those years ago to manipulate Hanzo into destroying the Akatsuki, Pain was nothing more than a creation of Obito's. It was astoundingly easy to do these things once you got a handle on it. After all, the one philosophy that Madara had trained Obito in during their time together was the concept of cause and effect. When one understood the situation enough, they could then manipulate an effect by adding a certain cause. And there was no better motivator for righteous rage than desire for vengeance. Be it against a person, a nation, or an entire world system, all one needed to do was manipulate events to bring one effect to another. If the person was not ready to fall to darkness, you simply planted the seeds until they were. But the most important thing was to remain hidden. Do not let them know you're manipulating them. They need the illusion of free will and choice. They need to feel like they're deciding for themselves what was best, not you. This is why Obito limited his interactions with the Akatsuki until the proper time had come. He had merely wanted to seed himself as a possible ally. He wanted to give himself as an option they could choose without knowing that he was truly their only choice. And now, as the world tumbled closer to war, that detestable state in which Pain's whole persona was created to destroy, Obito brought himself closer to them with an offer to help. As he met with Pain, Pain asked him why Obito thought they should consider what he says. What should they give him a position of leadership within the Akatsuki for when he's an outsider without any viable feats of trustworthiness? It was then that Obito presented them with a small boy. Pushing a child before him, the little blonde boy's eyes shined with the crimson hue of the rising sun. This boy was of the Uzumaki bloodline, and he possessed the Nine Tails. After the Kyuubi escaped and decimated the village, it fled into the wilderness for quite some time. I took it upon myself to capture it, and in doing so placed it into an orphan child, sick and on death's door. I offered the child a new life, and ever since it has so loyally stuck by my side, as if I were its father. Naruto turned away from Pain in fear and hugged up against Obito with a slight whimper, the appearance of the orange-haired being, face full of pins and rods, obviously terrifying the child. Obito placed a calming hand on the child's shoulder. Of course, not all of this was truth. While Naruto was a tool, Obito overblew his own merciful side to come across as more trustworthy. And even now, he was attempting to manipulate Pain by informing him of this boy's heritage as an Uzumaki, and therefore a distant cousin of Pain's. By setting up the familial connection, Obito was attempting to offer Pain something he had lost a long time ago: family. This was something that, even in his torment, Obito knew Pain could not resist. But the only way to have him was to accept Obito as a new head to the Akatsuki. The Sharingan, also being similar to Pain's, was designed to parallel Naruto to Nagato further, which would connect the two even more. The icing on the cake was to call Naruto an orphan, someone without a family. Making Naruto as relatable to Pain as possible was his goal, and he was attempting to do so in as few words as possible, attempting to focus more on his usefulness as opposed to his similarities. In doing so, Pain would never guess that Obito was pushing how similar they were. Nagato was obviously intrigued by this. After all, Obito knew that despite his bluffing, there were still many soft spots in Nagato's psyche. Parts of himself he could never deny, and that was perfect. These attributes Obito knew he could rely upon as he pushed into a deeper relationship with him and his group, offering Naruto as a prize and an answer to all the desires Nagato had on achieving a weapon capable of ending all war on Earth. My studies have led me to believe that these tailed beasts and your ghetto statue are connected. It seems that they were once all the same object, or perhaps creature. This means that your ghetto statue was capable of utilizing all the tailed beasts together at once, their powers being brought out magnificently in a way no single beast could bring out of themselves on their own. Each beast is themselves enough to vastly change the landscape of a battlefield, or to bring a mountain to ruin. If the ghetto statue possessed all 9 of the beasts, then you will have the power to invariably alter the world without any hope of resistance. You would then become the strongest man in existence, and the strongest man leads. Pain stood there silently before speaking. Would you be willing to sacrifice the child's life for this? To remove a tailed beast from a Jinchuriki is death. Obito gave a small chuckle. The Nine Tails is so large in chakra that we could split its chakra in 2 and still have a beast that compares to the other tailed beasts. In fact, even half of its power right now might overload the ghetto statue. The child doesn't have to die. Merely sacrifice half of its power, or however much you desire, and keep enough to subsist on for the rest of its life. That seems like a fair bargain, does it not? Pain continued to think about it. After deliberation, Pain had decided to grant Obito what he desired. Not that this was in any way unexpected for Obito. The truth of the matter was that, even playing it cool, Nagato had tipped his hand already when he asked about the safety of Naruto. He proved then and there that he cared for this boy's life. Anything thereafter was a foregone conclusion. With his newly acquired resources, Obito began to plan for the next round of events. Now that the world was destabilized and resources secured, the only thing left to do was take the beasts. Naruto was going to be the trump card, however. What Obito said was no lie. The Nine Tails was indeed the strongest of all tailed beasts by a long shot, and Obito believed that Naruto had the potential to utilize all the abilities at his disposal, if properly trained to do so. He'd begin training immediately, but for now he wished to let the boy acclimate. After all, a pawn that was seized by fear produced low-quality results, and so he picked Naruto up in his arms and moved to a place where they could converse alone. "Daddy, who's that man with the orange hair? Why does his face have holes in it?" Obito removed his mask to display the face that Naruto had long since grown used to. He smiled and returned to the voice that was natural to him, something more like Madara hit with a shrink ray and a pack of cigarettes. "That man is known as Pain. Like you, war changed him. But he didn't have someone like me to watch out for him, and so he became a very sad man. But he has eyes like yours. In fact, his eyes are an evolution of yours. Naruto blinked when he heard that, his own Sharingan's tomoe giving a slight spin of suppressed excitement. So he's like me? Obito nodded. In more ways than one, I assume. You two might be more closely related than you think. Naruto swallowed hard. I don't know if I like him. He makes me feel like he wants to hurt me. Obito laughed. That's just your imagination. He's a stoic. His expressions never change, regardless of what one says. Don't take his apathetic appearance for an apathetic heart. He was concerned for your safety when I spoke of taking a portion of your tailed beast, and trust me, doing that is 100% safe. He just wanted to be sure of that before he agreed to anything. Naruto hugged onto Obito, his little body trembling ever so slightly from the experience. Obito sighed with a smile and laid back in bed, letting Naruto hold onto him tightly like a koala to a tree limb, and just stroked the back of his head as he hummed a tune his grandmother used to sing for him in times gone by. Don't be afraid, Naruto. No one's gonna hurt you. I'll see to that. The two then went to sleep, there on the bed together. The next day, however, Naruto woke up alone. He looked around and didn't see Obito, nor did he see the mask he had left on the end of the bed. Obito was gone. Naruto was alone. Daddy? He looked around the corners and didn't see anything. He said I was safe. I'm not in danger. If Daddy could leave me here alone, then it must be safe. Naruto began to slip out of the room and down the halls. As he did so, he stumbled into Sasori. Falling on his butt, Naruto would blink twice as he saw the bald, hunched figure before him that seemed to speak through a growl. Who let rats into the base? Naruto scrambled to his feet and began to run in the other direction. This time he hit someone else. He looked up and saw a man with pale blue skin, beady eyes, and pointed teeth like a shark. I'm Kisame. Pleasure to meet ya. Startled for a second time, Naruto ran once more. All the while, Kisame wondered what he had done wrong. Naruto turned around the corner and hit Konan, falling down again. For someone with the Sharingan, you aren't very attentive, she said. Naruto curled up on the floor in a panic. Another voice was heard as it drew closer. I was wrong. It's not a rat, it's an armadillo. Too small to be an armadillo. Closer to a roly-poly. Too big to be a roly-poly, the woman said. It's a hedgehog. The trio gave a small laugh at the tormented boy before finally showing a little mercy. The girl poked at him. Hey, stand up. Naruto kept his face hidden. The woman sighed. Remember, you made me do this. She took a finger and poked his ribs, to which he let a small jolt. Ah, just as I thought. Maybe I should push the envelope then. She began relentlessly tickling him until Naruto straightened out in shock. She then picked him up. There, was that so bad? She put him under his arm like a little briefcase and began moving deeper. Lord Pain, looks like we have a visitor. Standing before the flames, nothing but his silhouette and piercing lavender eyes could be seen staring back. Naruto covered his eyes as if somehow believing that refusing to acknowledge the man there might somehow make him disappear. To his horror, however, the man merely drew closer. Show me your eyes, he said to the boy. Naruto shook his head. It wasn't a question. Suddenly, Naruto's hands began moving against their will. He tried to keep them covering his face, but a strange force was pushing them apart. Naruto was forced to look at the man, face to face. Sharingan. From what I'm told, that's an Uchiha Kekkei Genkai. Yet, you're an Uzumaki. How did you get them? My dad has them. I think I got them from him. Madara said you were an orphan, so you got no genetics from him. Naruto sat silently for a moment. If he's an orphan, maybe he doesn't know where he got them from. I mean, you knew your parents, Nagato, and you still don't know where you got your Rinnegan from. I know where I got my Rinnegan from. They were given to me by divine right, for the sole purpose of being this world's judge. I will determine if humanity can be saved, or if the world will be better off without us at all. This child, however, is a foundling. No such divine favor is upon him. You can't be so sure about that, Konan said, but all the same, he is an Uzumaki. Surely in name only. He doesn't possess the hair of an Uzumaki, Nagato said. Konan stood there silently for a moment. She then sat the child down, who immediately fled behind her. So is this you being skeptical for good reasons? Or is this because you don't wish to grow close to someone again? You're quite bold tonight, Konan, Pain said. Perhaps too bold. She clicked her tongue. My apologies, Lord Pain. It's not my position to pry. See that it doesn't happen again, he told her. Leave that boy here with me. I will determine what he is. As you wish. Konan then left. Pain was left alone in the room with Naruto, the latter of whom was already shaking with fear. Pain began to will the fire with his hand to jump to each of the different torches. It lit the room up and provided light round about. Naruto could now see Pain well. The man looked back at the boy. There's no need to fear. I'm not going to harm you. As if saying such a thing could set Naruto at ease. What do you know of this man? Madara. Only that he takes care of me. That, and he told me not to ever talk about him to anyone without his permission. What does he have to hide? Pain asked. Naruto shook his head. That's a question for Daddy. That's what he always taught me to say. I have to say it. Nagato was silent for a time as he went about something else. It seemed like he were reading from a book. Fine. If I can't ask about your father, then I should be at least able to ask about you. How old are you? I'm 6, he answered hesitantly. And your name is Naruto, correct? Naruto Uzumaki? Naruto nodded. Pain continued. I was once known as Nagato Uzumaki, not too different from you. I was born, however, in Amegakure, as opposed to Konohagakure as you were. I too was an orphan, struggling to survive, dying of starvation until I was found by my friends who nursed me back to health. I suppose the same is true of the masked man you call a father. The difference I feel is that my friends loved and cared about me. They didn't intend to use me as a weapon against others. Your father said he put the Nine Tails inside of you to use you as a weapon. Are you sure that you can trust your father? My daddy's a good man. You can't say bad things about him like that. Pain looked back. I believe your father is a cheat and a liar. I don't know what games he's playing, but I don't trust him. You don't, do you? Another voice came from the darkness. Both looked over to see a masked individual move through the wall and into the room with them. You were not invited in, Pain said, and I don't recall saying you could take the boy without my permission. What a distrustful thing to do. Nagato watched him from the corner of his eye. You do not trust me, it seems. Well, that's fine. I can just leave. But I'm taking Naruto with me, just so you know. Pain was silent for a moment. Unless you wish to uphold our arrangement. Whether you trust me or not is irrelevant, so long as you uphold your side of the deal, Uzumaki. I offer you the only thing that can truly allow you to accomplish your dreams in a practical fashion. You'd be a fool to throw that away. And what makes you think we couldn't simply take him away from you, regardless of what you think? Pain asked. Obito let off a smile that could only be detected by the look of his Sharingan under the mask's single peephole. And what makes you think you could take him away? Don't get me wrong, your Rinnegan is formidable, but don't underestimate everyone else around you. That will get you killed. Obito walked over to Naruto and picked him up. I'll forget this all happened. After all, it's only fair that you be skeptical of me, but be sure not to let your distrust ruin what we've planned together for so long. He would then disappear with Naruto in a flash. The two would appear somewhere else. Where are we? Naruto asked. Obito looked back. The middle of nowhere. Nobody will be able to find us here. This will allow us the privacy to train. Naruto nodded. What do we do? Obito knelt down. We're going to use your powers that you've been blessed with. The Nine Tails, as well as your Sharingan. Both of these tools are powerful and will help you quite a bit while attempting to take tailed beasts. So, are you ready? Naruto nodded. Good. First off, sit down and begin to meditate. Naruto sat and crossed his legs. He closed his eyes. What do I meditate on? Naruto asked. Simply clear your mind. Once it's empty, begin envisioning a plane within your own head. Search for another consciousness. Naruto would begin to do so. Suddenly, he was inside of his own mindscape. He looked around and was confused, but a moment later, the boy felt a hand touch his shoulder. He then saw Obito standing there. Come on, I have something that you need to see. Together, the two of them walked deeper down the darkened corridors of Naruto's subconscious, a labyrinth of shadows. Frankly, Obito had never seen a subconscious take on this form. Normally, the form of the subconscious was a wide open space. This form made it hard to get around, even for the user. Perhaps Naruto subconsciously remembered what he was, what had happened to him, and all of his memories were locked away in a realm that was designed to protect his fragile ego from the truth. This truth would likely be who his real parents were, and worse, what Obito had done to him. This insinuated that Naruto could be a threat. Obito would have to come back through here someday when Naruto wasn't around and search his mind for these repressed memories in hopes that he might destroy them. As the two ventured deeper, they came across a cage with a rabid beast inside. What is that? Naruto said, his voice high-pitched, almost halfway to a terror-filled squeal. That is the Nine Tails, he said as Naruto hid behind him, so scared that it seemed he might cry. Obito pulled him out from behind him, however, and pushed him in front. Look at it, Naruto. Don't look away. This creature is your birthright. It's so scary. I don't want to be here anymore. Obito shushed him. The beast is harmless to you as it is right now. So long as you don't open yourself up to danger, you'll be fine. Obito pointed to the ground. See that mark on the floor there? That mark is the limit to the Nine Tails' reach. So long as you stay that far away from the cage, he cannot hurt you. Daddy, I want to leave. I don't like it, Naruto said. Obito sighed, getting tired of explaining it. Naruto, the beast is no danger to you. It's under genjutsu right now, can't you tell? Naruto looked and noticed that the beast had tomoe around its iris. Obito knelt down. That beast has been under genjutsu for as long as it's been inside of you. I cast it under as soon as I sealed it, and your Sharingan have been subconsciously keeping it that way this whole time. It seems one of your Mangekyo Sharingan possesses a powerful genjutsu. It's completely at your mercy. Now, command it to do something. Like what? Naruto asked. Command it to lift its arm. Naruto did, and the beast obliged. Naruto is shocked. I don't understand. Obito hugged the boy tightly like a proud parent. You soon will. We'll begin training this soon. So long as the beast remains completely under your control, it is your plaything. Naruto nodded. Coming out of Naruto's mental plane, Obito then told him this. You also possess a Mangekyou Sharingan, much like mine. Obito showed Naruto his Sharingan before evolving it into a Mangekyou. If you can awaken it, you might possess techniques that'll help you on your missions. How do I awaken it? Naruto asked. Obito had to think about this for a moment. It had become second nature to him. He wasn't sure how to explain it. It's kind of a mental thing. You've got to focus on something that makes you upset, something that makes you angry or scared, or fills you full of intense emotions. And when you have, will it to open. Make the tomoe spin and find what feels right. It'll come naturally after you do it a few times. Naruto attempted to do what he was told. He didn't have any situations that filled him full of intense emotions because he was only 6 and mostly sheltered. So he created a scenario in his head that made him want to cry. He then began spinning the Sharingan around over and over. Every time it went by, he felt something different. There was more to the eye than just the tomoe they could see. As he closed his eyes, he willed that the tomoe move toward the iris while willing the irises to move toward the tomoe. As he opened his eyes, he suddenly would have awakened the Mangekyou Sharingan. You did it, Naruto! You awakened the Mangekyou Sharingan! Naruto began jumping up and down for joy. Yes, I did it! I did it! He then settled down and began to think through his confusion. What do I do now? Obito thought about it. We test you for your techniques. Each eye possesses a technique that you have a natural affinity for. They come naturally to us. He set up a training dummy. All right, let's start with your left eye. Begin attempting to use the technique that it comes with. Naruto nodded. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath and began to summon up his technique. Suddenly, as he opened his left eye, crimson chains made of red chakra fired from his Sharingan and gripped onto the dummy, beginning to pull it toward him. As it flew toward Naruto, Obito was ready to step in and protect him until suddenly, the dummy disappeared. Obito was shocked. He had seen the whole thing happen. A portal to the Kamui realm had opened, but Obito hadn't put it there. It seemed that these chains that shot forth from his eye could pull things into the Kamui realm, which made this technique a variant of Obito's. He titled it Binding Kamui. It worked like Kamui, but seemed to have a purpose more for sealing, which, even though these eyes were not originally Naruto's, seemed to match well with his Uzumaki blood, as this technique reminded him of a blend between the adamantine chains and Kamui. This was interesting, but the question was, what was the secondary ability? He told Naruto to try and utilize his right eye's ability on the squirrel that was nearby. Naruto attempted to and managed to cast a perfect genjutsu over the squirrel. This is like the Tsukuyomi, but far more powerful. This is a supreme Tsukuyomi. Its potency is like that of the Infinite Tsukuyomi, but only on one person. Unbreakable. Everlasting. Suddenly, Naruto doubled over in pain as he cried out. Obito, in fear, knelt down beside him. Naruto, what's wrong? It hurts. What hurts? Obito asked. Everything. Every cell in my body feels like it's gonna explode. Suddenly, a crimson red chakra covered him as various tails appeared from behind. Obito is shocked. The Nine Tails is escaping? The beast rushed at Obito, but Obito used his Kamui to become intangible. He gripped one of the tails and swung it into a tree. The beast let out a roar as it came at him again. It was still shaped like Naruto, but the crimson chakra surrounding him insinuated that it was the version 2 chakra cloak that the Jinchuriki could take. As Obito looked down though, he realized that his gloves were stained with blood. He wondered if he had been wounded, but he was certain that he hadn't been. He didn't feel any pain. He then noticed that there was a slight steam coming from the beast. A red steam. This is Naruto's blood. The form's shredding him to pieces. Obito came in again, ready to cast the beast under genjutsu, but it was utilizing Naruto's Sharingan to deflect it. It was then that Obito realized the truth. If the beast had access to Naruto's Sharingan, then it had access to all of his abilities. This meant that he needed to avoid eye contact as much as he could to ensure that he was not caught with the Supreme Tsukuyomi. He tried to get close using his Kamui. He managed to dodge a couple tailed beast bombs, but as he came at him, he was struck by the crimson chains from Naruto's right eye. Obito was thrown back into a tree. He was shocked to have been struck, but it hit him then that Naruto was utilizing a form of Kamui, which meant that this attack was extra-dimensional. This meant that his chains could follow Obito into the Kamui realm and remove the advantage of his tangibility. Obito removed his mask. He displayed a second Mangekyou Sharingan that was not the same as the one in his right socket. It had a completely different design, and this meant it had a different ability as well. But what could the ability be? Obito opened his eye and suddenly the beast was struck by 100 blades, invisible blades, or so it had seemed. Obito chose this ability due to its complementary nature to his Kamui. What this technique did was allow Obito to weaponize space-time ninjutsu and fold the dimensions of space-time on top of each other. The concept was that he was taking two portals that led to each other and pressing them so close together that there was no longer any space between them. In fact, the technique caused each portal to slightly bow into the other, generating a negative space that seemed to create an anti-space that he could then use to cut. This cut could negate durability, as anything that could not transcend space-time was subject to it. Naruto managed to use his binding Kamui to partly fend off some of these attacks, but they were coming in so fast that he couldn't defend against them all. Obito would press the attack until the beast fell forward. He would rush to the beast and cast it under Genjutsu. After doing so, the beast retracted into Naruto, leaving the boy burned and covered in lacerations. Obito would teleport him to the mountain's graveyard, where he'd inject him with some more of Hashirama Senju's cells to help him heal. As the regeneration began to take place, Naruto would wake up. What happened? Obito sighed in relief. You tried to utilize your Genjutsu technique, but it seems that this is the Genjutsu keeping the Ninetales at bay within you. When you cast it on something else, it freed the Ninetales. I suppose that it only works on one person at a time. I would recommend only using it on the Ninetales, elsewise I believe the beast will escape. Naruto grew a little nervous. Obito shook his head and pat Naruto gently on the cheek. It's okay. We know how to avoid that technique now. From here on, we'll just focus on using the binding Kamui. Does that sound fair? Naruto nodded. Obito sighed again. For now, get some rest. We'll continue training tomorrow. The battlefield was filled with the stench of blood. As the screams echoed out and the shells rained from the skies, darkness covered everything. Only two sets of piercing red eyes could be seen in the falling shadows that existed between the flashing ordnance. One set of eyes were red with a black three-spoked wheel, the spokes bent slightly. The other were a pair of red six-pointed stars set atop a black background. These eyes were the eyes of two of the Uchiha, the last reminder that Konoha ever existed at all. Their headbands bore the shape of Konoha's leaf on them, but the name was lost to the rest of the world, remembered silently in only the hearts of those who knew. The village hidden in the past is what it became known as to all outsiders. No village, no nation. They were merely mercenaries at this point, one day working for Kumo, the next day working for Suna, taking missions for Iwa and committing assassinations for Kiri. But why did this ethereal nation, this ghost village, fight so much? Was it because they wanted more money? A place to call home? No. These shinobi were Ronin, warriors without a master. They were destined to reach an end, but before that end came, they were determined to destroy the one responsible for the destruction of their village. And that was why they worked so hard. Looking down at the face of the warrior whose name had been on their bounty list. Target identified. Confirmed, Itachi said as his Shoto began sawing the head from the shoulders. Another beside him began to mark something off the list. A boy who looked to be no older than 16. Sasuke Uchiha. Though he did not remember the village hidden in the leaves, he was the last member of the final generation to be born in it, or so they had thought. But all in all, despite knowing nothing of the village, he knew what he had lost, because he lived every day without it. Without the loving touch of parents, without a house to call home, or a pillow on which to lay his head. He had Itachi, and Itachi tried to provide for him, but the world was a cold place. It was dark, and it was hard. Sasuke was experiencing a world without stability, with only Itachi being there to give him any form of steady care. And because of that, he hated whoever had done this to them, whoever had done this to their village. Bayer really wanted this guy dead to be able to put this big of a price tag on a guy who was probably going to get killed anyway, Sasuke said. Don't underestimate people. Chances were this guy was going to live and corrupt people, perhaps commit war crimes. If you looked at the record I gave you, you'd know. Sasuke looked to the side. I skimmed. I can see that. So what did you look for in this person before coming here? Sasuke stood silently for a moment. His abilities. Itachi looked up. That's why things don't make sense. You knew what the guy could do, not what he would do or how he would do it. By looking into the file, you found his tools, but you skipped his history. Without knowing the rest, you can never perceive the future. People hardly change, and unless you see how they act in the past, you can't guess what they'll do. This shinobi was a man of hatred, a man of cruelty. Every village he was sent to was sacked, its people tormented and killed. The one who hired us did so because he was the only survivor. He was like us. This was retribution. When you forget the human aspect of it, Sasuke, you open yourself up to destruction. Never be lazy. You can never afford to be lazy. Whether you do it now or do it when you have to do something else, you have to expend that energy, and the cost you pay will be increased. Be disciplined. Control your wandering mind and focus like a sword. Rest when there's no job to do, but when it's time to work, do it all, and do it well. Sasuke nodded. Itachi had taken it upon himself to teach the boy. He had hoped that Sasuke could grow up in a peaceful village protected by him when he was younger, but as the village fell to the Nine Tails, Itachi could do nothing but lament that all he could do was give Sasuke the same inner village that he and every survivor of Konoha carried with them. Taking up the head, the two of them left the battlefield together to find the man who owed them. They found him at his manor. By this time, the man whose home had once been destroyed had stumbled into good fortune, and had become a wealthy broker of fine antiques, which allowed him to gain more money than his original village ever had. But despite these things, he remained unhappy. It wasn't about the money as much as it was about the happiness, but with this he could feel fulfilled. The souls of those he loved finally at rest. They came into his home, dripping sweat, mud, and blood from the battlefield. Blood not their own. Soaking the carpet, carrying the severed head of the man in their hands. Those with weaker constitutions nearly puked at the sight. The lord of the manor dismissed his guests as he walked over to identify the shinobi. Ah yes, he possesses a mole under the right corner of his bottom lip. This is indeed the target I sent you to kill. Sasuke held out his hand without speaking, looking for the money. The man dropped the sack of coins in Sasuke's hands as Itachi handed over the 10-pound cranium. The man took it in his hands and looked at it. I would like to think that his spirit wanders around blind, deaf, and dumb, unable to find peace. Let that eternal torment be punishment for what he did to my wife and daughter. He bid that his servant come to him. The servant did so. Take this to the incinerator. Never let me see this face again. The servant left with it. Suddenly, Sasuke stepped forward aggressively, only for Itachi to catch him. This is only half of the agreed upon payment, Sasuke shouted. The man looked to Sasuke. Indeed it is. Itachi demanded that Sasuke control himself. Sasuke pulled back. Itachi then spoke. This is not the agreed upon amount. What's the meaning of this? The man smiled. You are indeed as perceptive as you were said to be. But should I truly be surprised that the pride of the Uchiha not let anything get by him? I was about to mention it. That sack contains half of the agreed upon money. Now I can give you the other half now, or you could use it to buy something from me that you desperately desire. And what is that? Itachi asked. The man's smile turned to a grin. Information. Itachi was intrigued. As a man with plenty of money, I know that there are things with value beyond gold. Things that are hard to buy. Intangible things that, while useless to some, might be priceless to others. But I also know that as poor folk, money has the ability to buy your necessities. So the choice is yours. What is the topic of this information you wish to sell? Itachi asked. The attack on the Hidden Leaf Village, and most importantly, the ones responsible for it. Itachi looked to Sasuke, who looked back, his face displaying honest curiosity. Itachi looked back to the man. Fine, we'll buy the information, but it had better be worth our time. If it's something we already know or something outdated, we'll be taking the other half of these funds whether you agree to it or not. No offense, of course, but we have a reputation. The man accepted the terms. The ones you're searching for are a group known as the Akatsuki. They're a secret organization that has mercenaries that rival or surpass even the great Konoha's Anbu. You see, I heard it whispered on the market when I was looking for those to hire to bring that bastard to justice. I was recommended by a friend to contact the Akatsuki because they were the ones responsible for the destruction of Konoha. The question you need to ask yourself is, what happened to the Nine Tails after the village fell? Well, it likely ended up in the hands of the Akatsuki, and rumors are swirling around that the Akatsuki have a member in the core that possesses the Nine Tails within them. Now, normally the Akatsuki would be my first choice, but I realized that this information would be worth a lot and I came into it for free. So I decided to cash my information on someone who could use it. Someone who's suffered like I have. So I'm telling you now so you can get to work avenging yourselves as you did for me. Itachi bowed slightly. Thank you. I don't suppose you know where to find this Akatsuki, do you? The man sat there for a moment. I'm not certain, but I think I know where they're going to be. There's been rumors that the tailed beasts are disappearing from each individual village. I'm not sure why they're after them, but they are after the tailed beasts. You could always start by staking out the tailed beasts and waiting for the Akatsuki to show up. It might be a long wait, but that's what I would suggest doing. Itachi looked at Sasuke. Sasuke gave a sly smile. I say we find this tailed beast user and see if he can't lead us back to the Akatsuki. Naruto Uzumaki, the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails, strode through the base of the Akatsuki. He had grown taller. It was hard to believe that 9 years had passed since he first came here, but now he possessed the cloak of the Akatsuki. He returned to the room that possessed the Geto statue. Walking in, he saw the statue there, 7 of its 9 eyes open, staring blankly into the space before it. "I see the sealing ritual went well," Naruto said. Pain, standing there alone, staring up into the eyes of the statue, spoke. "It did. Now there are but 2 other beasts left to sealed up before the 10 Tails awakens. Then the last beast for us to take will be the 8 Tails, and then I'll give up part of my 9 tails and the beast will awaken." Pain stood there silently for a moment before looking back. "Naruto, you need to know that you can't trust the man you claim to be your father. He's been manipulating you for quite some time. You do not see it because you're blinded by love, but you are a liability to him. When it's time to take the 9 tails, I fear he will try to kill you." Naruto couldn't hide the roll of his eyes. He sighed. "Lord Pain, I believe we went over this. While I respect your authority, I'd prefer if you not meddle in my personal life. Who I choose to call family is my choice." "I tell you this only because we are family, Naruto," Pain said. "I, like you, am an Uzumaki. I am of the same blood as you, the same clan, and I don't want to see you treated as such. You possess such magnificent potential, but don't let your heart be blinded. He will kill you. He took care of me for all my life." Pain sighed. "You've been an orphan since birth, but have you ever stopped to question who orphaned you?" "No, because it doesn't matter. My father's loved me since the beginning. I trust him. Now, just tell me where to find the 8 tails." Pain turned away from him. "Kumogakure. Your target is named Killer B. You can find him likely at the Valley of Clouds and Lightning. It's a mountainous region with large swaths of clouds above and water below. I have it on good intelligence that he goes there every so often to meditate and train. You may find him there. Once you capture the beast with the binding kamui, we'll begin the process of sealing it up as we did the last one." Naruto nodded and turned to leave. "Are you not going to rest?" Pain asked him. Naruto shook his head. "I am this close to fulfilling my father's dream," Naruto said while putting a little distance between his thumb and index finger. "Once we have the means to awaken the 10 tails, I'll rest. But for now, I hunt." And so Naruto left. He moved from limb to limb, making his way through the trees, across the bloody battlefield that was the Land of Fire before crossing the border. He managed to make it into the Land of Lightning, and proceeded to head to a location that was his target's eventual destination. There he laid in wait until his target arrived. He was rather spontaneous and funky, and Naruto was left intrigued by this man's easygoing nature. It seemed that the only training and meditation going on here was the man's attempt to get his rap career off the ground. He was spitting mad bars, and it was Naruto's question why this man hadn't been picked up by a record company yet. With the so-called music going around in this modern era, it was a rare thing to see a man who did it all for the passion and not for the money. There was something about this man that Naruto admired. He felt genuine. He felt real, determined. Naruto lamented that it was going to likely be his death. Naruto would sneak up from behind. He assumed that if he took his time getting close, that the man wouldn't know he was there and would simply be captured without so much as a fight. But as he drew closer, he heard the sound of shifting rubble. The stones near here were loose, and as soon as Naruto heard the sound of his foot dragging over the stones, he knew that his position was betrayed. A finely pointed blade was thrown at Naruto, only for Naruto to jump back and pull a kunai from his hidden stash about his wrist. The man still possessed 6 more swords. A very cautious man, Naruto thought. That was until he saw him take 6 blades and place them in every part of his body where they could be held. Naruto had heard rumors of a 3-sword style, where there was 1 sword in each hand and 1 in the mouth, but this took it to a whole new extreme. He held all of the blades at once. "Surely you can't move like that," Naruto said. "You'll just drop them all." Killer B, offering no response, simply decided to show Naruto how wrong he was. B launched into the air with speed and began to spin like a buzzsaw. Naruto was completely caught off guard by this. How did he make such an attack work? Naruto had to take out another kunai just to keep up, but even then he was still struck by some of the blades. Naruto quickly needed to make distance. Killer B graciously allowed him to do so, as if his previous attack had been a warning to him to not underestimate him, and to leave now while he still had his life. Naruto quickly shifted his eyes to Mangekyo. This was the best thing he could think to do. He needed to be able to see every blade as it came in. As the battle continued, Naruto activated his version 1 cloak, which intrigued Killer B, but B would simply activate his own version 1 cloak to continue the assault. At least this way the blades would do less damage. Naruto would begin to press the attack. He utilized his binding kamui, not so much to try and capture anything, but to use the chains as an extra grouping of weapons to strengthen his defense. The truth was, binding kamui was something that could be resisted. It wasn't like he could just capture any opponent. He had to weaken them first. Naruto had learned that the chains themselves could be used as such. They had a slight sealing touch. Every time it struck a body, the chains would seal up a portion of chakra. Naruto started pressing the attack, using his superior perception to combat every blade with the power of his Mangekyo's chains. As B was pushed back, Naruto began to feel he might have this. B then took on a version 2 cloak, to which he grew 8 tails. He utilized his blades in these tails to continue the fight. Naruto would enter his own version 2. Once more, the attacks were coming in. Killer B had a perfect union with his tailed beast, which meant that there were now 2 minds fighting instead of 1. B retrieved his 7th blade with one of his tails and proceeded to push the attack. Naruto was alone in this battle. Despite having what might be the strongest tailed beast, Killer B was still superior. The synergy the two had allowed them to pull the best out of each other and produce a Jinchuriki that, combined, possessed stronger traits than either of the base parts did alone. Naruto was being pushed back. He had no other choice. Pushing his strength as far as he could go, he took on tailed beast form. His entire body shifted into that of the 9-tailed fox, his stature growing immensely, his entire body covered with fur and pointed ears appearing. A moment later, he was in the form of the 9-tails. He had hoped that by bringing his full power to bear, he might be able to overpower their synergy, but the strain was intense. Despite the beast being under the supreme Tsukuyomi, the beast's rabid nature still pushed to the forefront of his psyche. Killer B, realizing what had to be done, also took the true form of his tailed beast, shifting into the 8 tails at full height, its size easily matching the 9 tails. Together, the 2 titans began to fight, each strike letting out a boom so loud that it threatened to crack the stones below. And if the strikes weren't enough to weaken the mountains, a beast being thrown into it could. The 9 tails landed a solid punch to the jaw, which knocked the 8 tails back and into a mountain, which caused much of the upper half to crack and fall off into the water. The 8 tails retaliated by striking out with its tentacles, but the 9 tails utilized its binding chains to fight them off, as well as steal chakra with each connection. B was on the ropes. He knew that there was at least one thing he could do that the 9 tails could not surpass, and that was tailed beast balls. The 8 tails possessed the strongest tailed beast balls in the world, and it possessed more variations than Kurama. Jumping back through the air, it launched 3 consecutive blasts of great strength. Naruto weaved around the first, then the second, but took the third to the side, which knocked him into a mountain. Gyuki would then find a safe distance and would charge a massive tailed beast ball. By the time Naruto got to his feet, it was already too late. The ball was coming at him. Naruto fired his own tailed beast ball at it, but it could do nothing more than hold the massive black orb for a moment, slowing down how fast it would come in. Naruto couldn't push it back, and he had nowhere left to go. He only had one choice. Once it was close enough, he reached out and grabbed it with his chains, and then sucked it and his own attack into the Kamui realm. Gyuki scoffed as Naruto, weakened, fell to his knees. "Seems it's taken a lot out of you, yo. Perhaps it's time to get out of here. Go," B said. Naruto shook his head. "Not until I defeat you." "Have it your way, fool, you fool." B charged another tailed beast bomb, knowing that Naruto couldn't counter it. He would then fire it at Naruto, who himself had formed with the last of his power, the final and largest tailed beast ball he could create. The orb collided with Gyuki's, but still wasn't enough. That was until Naruto utilized his Kamui to summon back the attack launched at him before, and adding it to his power. This had the ability to push Gyuki's attack back into him, causing the beast to be struck by 4 tailed beast balls at once, 2 massive ones and 2 regular-sized ones. To be honest, Naruto was worried that there wouldn't be anything left at all. But he was wrong to worry. The 8 tails was a hardy creature. It stood there for a moment covered in char, before falling down on its face and passing out. Naruto stumbled toward it with his own tailed beast form trembling below him. He fell to his knees, and then utilized the binding Kamui to seal up the 8 tails, Jinchuriki and all, sending it in the direction of his father. Taking his human form once more, Naruto could do nothing but pass out in the rubble. Back at the base, Obito would inform Pain about what had just happened. "Naruto captured the 8 tails. It's best for us to seal it away now, while we have the chance." And so, all of the Akatsuki began the ritual process of sealing up the 8 tails into the Gedo statue. As they finished the process, Obito sighed. With that done, all that's left is to simply place a little of the 9 tails into the statue. But there was a sudden feeling in the room, a feeling of tension. Obito looked back at the various Akatsuki members as they all stood with their weapons drawn. "Oh dear, Nagato, I never thought you to be this foolish." Pain stood there. "I know what you intend to do to the Uzumaki boy. I will not stand for it." To be frank, Obito had not expected this level of reaction from Pain. For one that had seemingly cast off the concepts of weakness and compassion for stoicism and the determination to bring the world pain, he was suddenly acting out of his own personal heart. What does that matter to you? Whether I plan to take half of the Nine Tails or all of the Nine Tails, it makes no difference. Your dream still reaches fruition. Our shared dream reaches fruition. Pain shook his head. No, your dream ends here. I know what you're planning. Pain produced the body of Zetsu. I witnessed you speaking with this one, so I utilized the human path to discover your connection. You were going to lock the world behind a dream. Your machinations end here. Obito sighed. The jig was up. This plan had backfired horribly, but none of that mattered now. He no longer had use for Nagato or the Akatsuki. All he needed right now was Naruto, and he would have him. Obito removed his mask to show both of his Mangekyo Sharingan. I warned you long ago not to overestimate your power simply because you possess a Rinnegan. I'm going to show you what happens when you fail to remember your place in this world. Naruto's eye eventually opened, and he was sitting in a chair, tied to it. Huh? He looked around and saw the eyes of two others nearby. Itachi stood there over him. Sasuke was close by. I say we torture him, get the information we need out of him, and then dispose of him, Sasuke said. Itachi shook his head. No, we just found something interesting. Itachi looked at Naruto's eyes. Can you shut those Sharingan off? Naruto shook his head. Transplant. Sasuke scoffed before spitting on the ground. Who did you steal them from? Itachi looked back. Sasuke, enough. Stop jumping to conclusions when you don't know the situation. Itachi looked. These eyes. You don't recognize them, little brother, but I do. These are the eyes of our father. Sasuke was confused. Wait, what? Itachi nodded. This had to have been an unwilling transplant. This boy is no older than you, Sasuke. There's no way he intentionally took these eyes. What's your name? Itachi asked. Naruto was silent. Itachi sighed. Fine, we'll do it the hard way. Sasuke, come over here. Sasuke walked over, Sharingan activated. Suddenly, all three of them were inside of Naruto's mindscape. They looked around. Wow, awfully guarded, Itachi said. Naruto was still chained, held captive by Sasuke, who followed Itachi. The two of them sought around the vast repositories of knowledge and found the information they were looking for. Itachi was a little shocked. Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto stood there listening. Why does it matter? Sasuke asked. Do you not know who this is? Itachi asked. This is Naruto Uzumaki, the son of Kushina Uzumaki. This boy is the son of the fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze. Wait, the one killed the night Konoha fell? Itachi nodded. He walked over to Naruto. He knelt down a little to face him head on. Why are you working with the people who destroyed our village and killed your parents? I don't know what you're talking about, Naruto said. You don't know the events of that night, do you? Itachi began to rifle through various memories to see if he couldn't understand what Naruto's life had been up to that point. Hey, stop that! Who said you could dig through my mind? Itachi looked back. Who is this Obito fellow you call father? He's the only one in my life who loves me. When I was orphaned, he loved me. He cared for me. He killed your true parents, Sasuke said. I refuse to believe that, Naruto shouted. Itachi nodded. Then maybe we need to go deeper. They traveled to Naruto's earliest memories, attempting to get to the day of his birth. You see, the human mind doesn't tend to be capable of recalling memories that happened before the age of 2, but that doesn't mean they're not there. Our minds are meticulous at keeping track of information, but recalling it? Sometimes it's near impossible without the proper impetus. That's why you can't recall the names of things you remember. Itachi traveled back. The first recorded memories. They're of the day the village fell. He attempted to read through the scrolls, but found them empty. The memories have been destroyed. Naruto was confused. Destroyed? Itachi nodded. Somebody who didn't want you to remember came in here before us and removed this information. What are we supposed to do then? Sasuke asked. Itachi looked back. The Nine Tails. This boy is the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails. Despite it existing in this boy's mindscape, it is itself a separate mind. I can't help but wonder if the one responsible for this went to the lengths of erasing the Nine Tails memory too. And so Itachi and Sasuke led Naruto to the cage of the Nine Tails. Itachi saw its eyes. Genjutsu, cast by Naruto. It seems to be a form of Tsukuyomi, like mine. I guess it runs in the family, Sasuke said. Likely it kept out the one who erased your memories, because even I can't get into its mind right now. Itachi turned to Naruto. Naruto, I need you to undo the Genjutsu on this beast. Naruto shook his head. No, if I do, I'll lose control. Itachi offered a kind smile. I can control it with my Tsukuyomi, but we need to get in if we're going to see the truth. Why do we even need to see it? Naruto asked. Sasuke shrugged. I'm honestly with Naruto on this one, Itachi. Why do we need to see? How does this pertain to our mission? Itachi looked at Sasuke. Honestly, it doesn't. But this boy isn't our enemy, Sasuke. He's a victim. He just doesn't know it, and I think he deserves to know. Itachi then looked at Naruto again. But all the same, I won't force you to do anything you don't want to. If you want to know the truth, then trust me. If not, we can leave. A moment passed before Naruto grunted. Fine, do it. Naruto let the genjutsu go. Itachi quickly cast the beast under genjutsu. He then managed to open up its mind and transport them inside. When there, they went all the way back. The Ninetales seems to have kept a record of the memories stolen from you, as well as its own memories. 2 separate sources for the events of the same night, each corroborating each other. Are you ready to see, Naruto? Naruto nodded. This'll prove my father's a good man. They looked into the memories, falling back in time to the day of the Ninetales attack. This had been Sasuke's first time experiencing it, but for Itachi it brought back dark memories. They witnessed everything. Kushina being brought to the underground facility and the birth of Naruto. For Naruto's sake, Itachi skipped over the process of birth and jumped to Naruto in the arms of Biwako. But a moment later, Naruto was taken. He was in the arms of another. See, that's my father, Naruto shouted. Itachi shook his head and pointed to Minato. No, that man's your father. They then witnessed Obito put a kunai to Naruto's throat. They saw the Hokage rescue Naruto and throw away the swaddling clothes lined with paper bombs. This Obito man tried to use you as a weapon to kill the Hokage. He then apparently took your mother and ruthlessly ripped the Ninetales from her and set it to destroy the village. It seems that both the Hokage and his wife died in the ensuing battle. They witnessed Obito come to take Naruto for himself. Oh, you shall be a happy little ninja, my unwitting slave, Obito said. A powerful servant, one that through hard work will attain the nirvana I have planned. The memory then shifts to the ceiling of the Ninetales. The beast cannot yet be placed in the ghetto statue, Obito said. So for now you will serve as a happy little vessel. One that shall cry, Papa, until the day I no longer have use of you. Then I'll take the beast from you and cast aside your broken body, just as I cast aside your father, my old mentor. They watched on. Itachi looked back at Naruto to see eyes full of shock, tears rolling down his cheeks. Itachi realized that he had just brought the boy's world crashing down. It hurt, but in the end it was for the best. I'm sorry, Naruto. Naruto shook his head. No, you doctored it. It's fake. It's a lie, or genjutsu, or something. Itachi then knelt down. No, these are the memories that we both discovered together. You know it's the truth. Tears bubbled from his eyes as his face became one of utter agony. I thought he loved me. He was all I had left, and he... Itachi hugged him. Naruto, everyone lost something that night. It's why we need to take him down, to claim justice for the dead. Naruto began to follow Sasuke and Itachi, leading them back to the Akatsuki base. He didn't wish to believe that any of this could be true at all, but he couldn't deny these memories were his. He tried to rationalize that they'd been implanted, but he couldn't prove that. They all had this particular feel and way of recording. It was too perfect. He led them in where they found Obito standing at the center of a circle of bodies, covered in blood. He looked back. Ah, Naruto. And I see you've brought some friends. A good thing, too. Ours seem to have gone bad. Naruto was shocked. Father, what have you done? Obito looked around. They had planned to betray and kill me, Naruto. They planned to take the full beast out of you for their own selfish desires. So I killed them, to protect you. Don't listen to him, Naruto. Remember what we showed you. Those memories he hid. He's the one who killed your father. Naruto looked up. Is it true, father? Kill my birth parents. Obito looked down and shook his head. Of course it's not true. I don't know what these two showed you, but it was an obvious lie. I love you, and you know this. Cross-reference those memories with all the others you have. Have I ever displayed a time where I didn't seem genuine? Naruto thought about it. He flipped away from Sasuke and Itachi. No, you haven't. I'm sorry, father. I let them confuse me and doubted your love. Obito patted Naruto on the shoulder. It's okay, Naruto. Let's just hurry up and deal with these two. Then we can use some of your Ninetales to activate the ghetto statue and bring about the nirvana we had planned. Naruto looked over. What did you say? Obito looked back. What? You just said nirvana, like in the memory. Obito chuckled. Well, that's just a coincidence. People use terms, Naruto. They don't mean... He saw Naruto was about to cry. Screw it. He pulled his katana out and swung it at Naruto. If only you'd continued to trust me, you might have been able to see the world I had planned for us. But now you're going to die like the rest of the Jinchuriki. He attempted to utilize Takemikazuchi to shred Naruto with dimensional blades. However, Sasuke and Itachi covered Naruto with their Susanoo. Naruto looked around at the glowing avatars summoned by the two brothers. They would look to Naruto and nod. Today we avenge our village. Naruto pulled a kunai. He attempted to call a Susanoo as well. After a short moment of instruction from Itachi, Naruto did manage to call it. A magenta avatar that stood as the origin of the two that stood beside it. It was at this moment that Obito wished he hadn't given his other Sharingan to Kakashi, or at least wished to have taken it back when he had the chance. With his mismatched Sharingan, he could not awaken the Susanoo inherent to him, but that hardly mattered. Their so-called absolute defense could do nothing about such powerful dimensional hacks, such as that provided by the Kamui. Obito, bearing his katana, rushed forward. Sasuke and Itachi attempted to strike him, only for their blades to go straight through. Obito ran right through Itachi's Susanoo and impaled him, causing the ninja to fall to his knees. "Brother!" Sasuke called out as he pulled his own katana. For a while, he clashed blades with Obito. That was until Kamui allowed Obito to phase his blade through Sasuke for a moment before slicing him across the chest. Sasuke fell as well. Obito popped his neck. Those two were nothing, and neither will you be. That Susanoo of yours may protect you from Takemikazuchi, but it won't protect you from my Kamui. Obito rushed at Naruto, attempting to strike him. "Don't worry, precious son. I won't kill you. Not until I have the beast you're hiding in your soul." Naruto, with his kunai, managed to block Obito's katana, but only a few times. He managed to cut deeply into Naruto twice, just to punish him. Naruto jumped back, having dropped his kunai and claiming Sasuke's blade for his own. "Don't think that the katana will save you." Obito rushed forward. He planned to slice at Naruto again, but Naruto deflected his blade and went to impale Obito. The blade passed through. Obito sighed. "You would think that you would learn by now. My Kamui makes me." He suddenly felt blood running down his chest. He became aware of the pain. What? He noticed that Naruto had wrapped his binding Kamui chains around the blade at the last moment. He had sent the blade to the Kamui dimension to stab Obito. Obito fell back. Naruto caught him. "What have you done?" Obito demanded. We could have brought peace." Naruto shook his head. "You wouldn't have brought peace. You would have killed me." Obito looked away. "I wasn't planning to kill you." Naruto was shocked. "You weren't?" Obito shook his head. "No. Pain insisted I was, but I never planned to. I hate to admit that. I developed a soft spot for you. Even though I could have seen you alive in the Tsukuyomi, I wanted you to experience it yourself. Even if you were nothing more to me than a servant. That one part of me that still held on to my mentor. It wanted to see you happy, at least." Naruto felt tears coming to his eyes. "Even if your love for me was fake, father, my love was real, and it still is. You don't know how badly I'm hurting right now." Obito shook his head. "No, I do. When I killed your father that day, I was ecstatic. But I didn't even notice until later that I cried. I killed the man who had partially raised me. I know how you feel, but I guess none of that matters." Naruto hugged him. Obito, for a moment, was overwhelmed with love. In the face of his defeat, knowing that his plans had been for nothing, he hugged Naruto back. "In some world, I'd like to think I was a good father to you. You were a good father to me. I just wish you'd been a real father to me." Obito nodded. "Maybe in some world, maybe in this world, a part of me was." Obito then passed on in his arms. Naruto began to cry for him. Much time passed before Naruto could pull himself back together. As he stood, he looked at the Geto statue. It was filled with the 8 beasts save his 9th. He had killed so many people in the name of peace. He couldn't let this go to waste. And so he took the Rinnegan of Nagato, implanted them into his own head, and then absorbed the Geto statue into him, where he proceeded to merge it with his 9 tails. Becoming the new Sage of 6 Paths, Naruto set about attempting to bring peace to the world, this time without killing. Due to his experience with Obito, he would have realized that in the end, all people truly wanted was to feel loved. And so, with this new, overwhelming power, he would stop the fighting and heal those hurt therein. He would bring the war to an end and use his powers to unite the 4 remaining shinobi nations. He would then call back all the shinobi who had once lived in Konoha, and he would help them rebuild their village. He would aid in bringing the land of fire back, and would help the world find common ground and give up their weapons. Meeting with Hagoromo in a dream, the original sage would tell Naruto his original design for chakra, and what it truly meant to be a shinobi. Naruto would begin showing people this new, or should I say old, way of using chakra, not as a weapon, but as a way to bring people together. And in their joy, the people united and began to lean more on compassion than common greed. This began a new era of peace, one that had not been seen in over 1,000 years. And that's how I plan to end this story. I know it's a bit of a bummer on Obito's end, but you need to realize that Obito was a bad guy and was deceiving Naruto the whole time into being bad with him. If it hadn't been for Sasuke and Itachi, then at best, Obito casts the world under the Infinite Tsukuyomi, and at worst, kills Naruto as well. Despite the fact that Obito had been portrayed as caring about Naruto, from the very beginning Naruto was nothing more than a tool to him, and when Naruto figured that out, he was cast aside. I suppose that's something that happens in life too, but just because someone's love for you is fake, be it friends who have used you for their own benefit or anything else, that doesn't mean your love has to be. True, real love is the kind that does so without asking for anything in return. Now, it's not the same as being gullible, don't let people use you, but when you firmly walk away from that situation, do so with kindness in your heart, and realize that the only broken person there is the one who tried to use you. Always remember that you're cared for, and never forget to care for others. But anyway, I prattled too long. Be sure to like, subscribe, and all that other good stuff, and until next time, peace out.